Hi, I'm Dr. Charles Richardson with Cleveland Heart. Our mission is to bring to market ventricular assist devices. These devices are important and are going to impact the management of heart failure patients. In the next few minutes, you're going to watch a video that's going to talk about how these implantable devices are going to extend patients' lives.
Cleveland Heart Incorporated is a partnership between a leading hospital and research institution, the Cleveland Clinic, and Transworld Medical Devices, a serially successful medical device team that specializes in development and conversion to practice of market-leading medical technology innovations. In this video, you will hear from some of the top researchers and surgeons in the field of cardiac disease and treatment. They will help to identify the existing problems in this area and give insight into the technologically advanced solutions being developed by Cleveland Heart.
Heart failure today is truly a challenging disease, syndrome, and topic. There's a lot of patients with heart failure, particularly advanced heart failure.
Really need to start from the concept that the heart itself is really two pumps. There's a right side and a left-sided pump. The great majority of patients that you see in clinical practice with heart failure are dying because of the left side of their heart failing. The left side's the side that pumps blood to the major organs of the body, perfuses the brain, carries oxygen to the body. So it's a critical issue.
Unfortunately, we don't cure many with heart failure. And also unfortunate is the fact that despite good medications, many patients still progress to more advanced stages of the disease.
It's been estimated that approximately 75% or so of patients basically could do very well with a left heart support device.
One thing that we are also lucky to have is newer technologies that can make patients feel better and can have a positive impact on the disease process.
Finally, there are patients where the heart is so badly damaged there is no hope of recovery. There is no real support from that particular organ, and in fact it's a danger to leave it there. For those patients, the only option is what's called a total artificial heart. This is a device that completely replaces the two pumping chambers. So what we've worked on for many years are really the approaches to covering that field. In other words, a left-sided support device, a right-sided support device, and a device that's capable of taking over the whole heart.
If you look at the numbers, there are roughly 1 million patients annually that get hospitalized for heart failure. And probably the condition is in as many as 6 to 10 million Americans.
Inevitably, we would come across patients that no matter what we did, there wasn't enough or there was no surgery that was suitable for them. And really, the initial efforts were for patients that couldn't come off a heart-lung machine. Their heart was impaired as a result of the surgery in a lot of ways. And it was believed then that if you could support that patient for a period of time, rest the heart somewhat, that that patient's heart could recover and they'd survive.
Despite all of the things that we have, the medications, the devices, the operations that we do, we still see a tremendous number of patients with very advanced, very end-stage heart failure who reach pretty much the end of the road. And they can be tremendously symptomatic and can have substantive problems and difficulties, and there's just not much more that can be done other than heart transplantation or perhaps inserting a total artificial heart or a partial artificial heart or a ventricular assist device.
A ventricular assist device is designed to aid the heart in pumping blood and is inserted to assist the failing heart. The Cleveland Heart VAD's elegant design consists of the volute housing assembly, the rotating assembly with primary and secondary impellers, and the stator assembly, which houses the motor windings. The unit functions with only one moving part, nearly eliminating the risk of mechanical failure. It has no mechanical bearings whatsoever. and is driven by a magnetic field. The rotating assembly's primary and secondary impellers take the blood, which enters from the ventricles, and directs the majority to the body, and a small amount down into the VAD to lubricate the magnetic bearing surface.
Throughout the course of my residency and chief residency, I saw many patients implanted successfully with cardiac transplantation, but certainly we didn't have support devices. The concept of bridge to transplant didn't really exist at that time.
What's evolved is the fact that these devices have got much better, much safer, much more reliable. And now we're starting to push into the area of patients who aren't at death's doorstep necessarily, but where it's obvious that their condition is not going to improve, and that with time they will need some form of support. Ideally, in the beginning it was thought this would be cardiac transplantation, but it's become very obvious that there's a severe limitation on the availability of donors. And the only option short of that these days is the use of these implantable blood pumps.
In the early 1990s, the concept of bridge to transplantation became more prevalent. And the original devices that we used were large pulsatile pumps with a very large, people referred to it as a grocery cart, that the patient or the assistant had to push up and down the hall.
Initially, it was really like a continuation of the heart-lung machine, cardiopulmonary bypass. But it became obvious that that had severe limitations in how long you could run it for. So there was an effort to develop pumps that could last longer, that were external in the beginning, and finally internal pumps.
Cleveland Clinic, since its founding in 1921, I think has been defined by a commitment to solving unmet clinical needs. And so decade by decade, the Cleveland Clinic has tried to, I think, define the standard of care in contemporary medicine and then go beyond it.
Then we saw over the next 5 years the introduction of the same devices that had shown the ability to basically resuscitate patients, even get them out of the hospital and improve their quality of life while they were waiting for a heart transplant. And to begin to think in terms of using these devices as a chronic form of support.
So if you look at the use of mechanical support devices, it's a natural outgrowth of the clinical leadership that came from these key leaders, key departments here at the institution. And I think their view initially in the artificial organs group was that they had to have these technologies to meet the needs of the patients that they were seeing.
In the last 10 years, there's been a significant change in the technology, whereas we've gone from the big and sometimes rather crude devices that we began with, and albeit there were still survivors with that, but we've now progressed to these smaller mini pumps that are assist devices, and they'll fit even kids, and they're a very dramatic improvement. And the results with these are now starting to approach the results one can get with transplantation.
So when we get to the point where we have devices that we can project a 10 to 20% mortality rate over the first year, so an 80 to 90% survival rate, we'll now be playing in the same arena as cardiac transplantation, which is 80 to 90% survival at 1 year.
For the Cleveland Clinic to maintain its leadership to be the top cardiac care center in the United States and really effectively the world, it's all about obviously achieving at the highest levels of clinical care, but it's also about transitioning research breakthroughs into practical action. So here, if you look at our program again in pumps and assist devices, that's a wonderful example of how this works. So we have this whole community of clinical leaders, cardiac surgeons, cardiologists, folks working with them, And these are people who are absolutely committed to addressing the problems that they're seeing in the execution of their work. And in the Cleveland Clinic model, those clinicians are partnered with leaders in the lab. And we're fortunate here at the clinic that we have a very eminent cardiac surgeon who is leading the development on the device side.
That's been a rough road over the last 50 years to develop technology that is sustainable, technology that helps patients. But we are finally there. And I believe that just around the corner are going to be some remarkable devices, both left and right ventricular assist devices, as well as devices designed to completely replace the heart, such as a total artificial heart. And again, the devices that we see coming to market are smaller, more reliable, have less complications and less difficulties. And we've seen a major milestone reached here just recently with the FDA approving the first continuous flow, small ventricular assist device.
We feel like we've got the right team assembled with absolutely the right priorities, and so after now many years of work refining the technology, refining the electronics, the mechanical aspects, the materials, signal processing, we feel it's all come together now, and we are in a period where this is going to be applied. It's going to save human beings in a very short period of time.
It is wonderful to have someone as powerful as Cleveland Clinic to work with the guys, the thought leaders in the world, to build these products that we know are going to help patients.
Now, another thing that I think is a little bit of irrational or incorrect reasoning is to put cardiac transplantation up as the gold standard and as the target. At the Cleveland Clinic, over 90% of our patients are alive 12 months after a heart transplant. Yet, we have to put into perspective that immunosuppressive drugs have many complications, that 5 to 10% of patients will have end-stage renal disease by 5 years after transplantation because of side effects. The number one cause of death after cardiac transplantation is actually related to malignancy. And close behind is cardiac disease, because to date we have not yet been able to attenuate the development of coronary artery disease in the transplanted heart. We also have to tell a patient that they've got a 20% chance to be alive 20 years after a heart transplant. So if you're 60 and you're in trouble, that sounds pretty good. If you're 20, you know that if you want to reach your 70th birthday, you're looking at multiple transplants, or you're looking at some new innovation that comes along in your lifetime. So cardiac transplantation, unfortunately, is a terrific way to rehabilitate a patient. It's a great therapy, but it clearly has significant limitations.
You know, this market's been defined in different ways. You know, clearly we have the bridge to transplant opportunity, and then we have destination therapy, and one will eventually lead to the other. So now with recent regulatory approvals, the first part of that market, bridge to transplant, is going to, we think, grow. And ultimately, we see this as a significant market opportunity, and one, again, that always translates back to the ability to, you know, help people and help their families in terms of providing care that has not been possible in the past.
My grandmother had heart failure, and you were in there every day trying to take care of her. These devices are going to make such an impact to patients, to take care of those patients. Back when she had heart failure, we didn't have the LVAD to take care of her. But today, in working with a partner like the Cleveland Clinic, we are building products that could have saved my grandmother's life. So it is one of the most important things in my life to see these products come to market and help people.
The ideal device, I think, will be when we get to the point where we have a totally implantable device with close to a zero chance of infection and a very low risk of stroke. So if the stroke risk is under 5%, the operative mortality rate is under 5%, and patients can start to expect 80 to 90% survival rates at 1 year. I think we're going to see this market open up significantly for devices in that ill but less ill than the patient that was seen in the rematch population or that we would traditionally refer for a cardiac transplant.
Well, we'd like to think that our approach is certainly distinctive and maybe unique from the standpoint of, builds from the Cleveland Clinic's group practice model, where all the physicians, all the researchers here, everyone is on the same team. They all work off of the same guidance, and we think that gives us a huge and enormous advantage in terms of seeing the application of technology. So we've got our whole team working together. We don't have to go find some professor who is working in some other state or some other part of the world. It's all here. It's all under the same roof. You combine that with all the industrial capabilities that are present in the Cleveland Clinic in terms of we have a prototyping laboratory that's equivalent of anything in industry. And then you put that all together and you partner the Cleveland Clinic with folks from companies who have been successful at bringing cardiovascular products to market in the past. It's a wonderful combination and I think complement of experience and capability.
We are excited about working with Cleveland Heart on implantable devices. We have experience, we have over 10 years experience in implantable devices and commercializing and bringing them to market.
From my standpoint, kind of as an observer of our clinicians, we always think about it as patients that might not have survived an acute event, now living for years and years and years. And it's these kind of devices, these innovations that will hopefully restore their quality of life and bring them and their family into a place that they desperately want to get back to, which is a regular quality of daily life that is so hard to return to once you've lost it.
Based on its unique pump design and control algorithm, we expect the Cleveland Heart LVAD to outperform any other LVAD on the market or in development. And our initial results support these expectations. The powerful team of a successful medical device development company, backed by the world's thought leaders in the field of cardiac disease treatment and care, makes the Cleveland Heart LVAD the leading product of its kind. Cleveland Heart, protecting hearts for generations to come.